Now, Joe Russinello, whatever your view is on what's going on in the Middle East, whether you're blasting the Israelis, if you're blasting Hamas and the Palestinians, whatever side you come down on, okay, all I'm going to say is that woman is unhinged because the sight of an Israeli flag, okay, makes her have that reaction. And we're going to play that reaction a couple times when we play some of these clips, okay? We're just going to use her to yell shame at some people, like maybe, I don't know, Justin Trudeau. You know who else is going to get a little shame tonight, John? I got to be honest with you. Pierre Poilievre's going to get a little shame tonight. I'm going to throw a little shade his way, Joe. And I'm going to be very, very interested in your comments, but not for nothing. We got a great lineup for you tonight here at the front line with Joe Pasillo and Joe Russinello. Brothers and sisters, let us go into the breach. We're going to talk about Canada. We always talk about Canada. All right. I have family in Canada. I mean, I worry about what goes on there because they're our northern neighbor. And quite frankly, you have we're going to get into this, a wacko running the country. See, Biden, you can't call a wacko because wackos actually have wacky ideas. Biden has no ideas. But we're going to talk about what's going on in Canada. We're going to throw it over because I personally think that Pierre Poilievre is, or at least up until I show you the clip, he says things very bluntly. And I appreciate that about him. But we're gonna throw him a little shade, and then we're gonna come back to the United States because I don't know what's in the water in Texas. Okay, and we're gonna play a clip that has me baffled as far as the identity of this person. We have a repeat performance from the cursing, screaming guy who wants to yell at Republicans and use a lot of words. So he wants to educate us on climate change, and then a very interesting thing that Joe and I say on the show all the time, but now a more prominent person out there is talking about voting for Donald Trump, and quite frankly, in the past, might not have had a reason to do so. So this is going to be a great show. Joe Russinello. So real quick, shame on Justin Trudeau. I want to play this clip and then I want to come back, okay? He disgusts me. He disgusts me in my heart and in my soul. I don't like him, and I'm going to tell you why when we come back.
Grocery prices in Canada are like...
You can buy one bulb of garlic for 50 cents at home. $4 for two. $7 for a head of cauliflower, a single head, and half of these are moldy. Cinnamon spiced honey, $18 a jar. 2 for $17. Sparkling water, 2 for $17. Sparkling water. One isn't a price thing. It's just look at what French people call goldfish.
Crystal Leon.
Just get myself the tiniest goddamn bundle of for $30 dried flowers.
Now, let's get serious a second. Now, we know, now that's Canada. For those of you just joining us, that's Canada. And those two people are going through the supermarket and they're talking about the prices of different things. If I spent, by the way, for argument's sake, Joe, $2 or $17 for 2 cases of sparkling water, my wife would hit me in the head with the toaster. Okay, that's not happening. But in Canada, there seems to be no choice. Now, the reason why is because of Trudeau and the people like him in the Canadian government because of carbon tax, doing everything they can to destroy oil production, to jack up prices, jack up inflation. And when somebody complained, this was a few months ago, when we played the clip a few months ago, when somebody complained in an open forum, in a public forum, and asked about the suffering of the Canadian people, Justin Trudeau yelled at the guy and said, if you want to see real suffering, go to the Ukraine and you'll see real suffering. He yelled at the guy because gas prices are up, because the price of groceries are up, because the cost of milk is up, and said, if you want to see real suffering, go to the Ukraine. That's the leader of Canada. He's made an enemy, and we said this before. Him, Joe Biden, all of them. They've made enemies of their own people when their own people express legitimate concerns. Joe, dying to hear your view on this.
Well, ultimately, people have to vote with their wallet. Turn off the news. Stop listening to the pundits. Look at your checkbook. Look at the bill that you pay for food. That's all you need to know, because ultimately that is an apolitical issue. Jagmeet Singh, Justin Trudeau, they're going to deflect. They're going to say it's the corporations. No, it's not.
It's not.
You printed money that you didn't have. You drove up. Well, you devalued your dollar. You basically have carbon taxed the people to death. You got them off of oil and gas, which is a green energy model, which they're now gearing towards, which crushes the regular man. And Justin Trudeau's job is to do one thing: to deflect and to gaslight and to distract and to divide.
And Go
And
Blue is joining
ultimately,
us in
the
the chat
only
room.
losers are the people.
Are the people. Go Blue's joining us in the chat room. Go Blue, stick with us, okay? Because he says they're all effing corrupt. Doesn't make any difference what party. We're going to show you a clip, Go Blue, in a few minutes where you're spot on. Now, if I'm in Canada, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I'm voting for Pierre Poilievre. All right, because the other side is wacko, and we're going to hear about that. But Pierre Poilievre did a couple of things over the last few days that kind of made me question too. And a lot of people saying, well, he seems like part of the Uniparty also. But yeah, Joe, that's one of the things I think people need to get through their head really more than anything else is this whole idea that the people who run the governments, okay, particularly in America and particularly in Canada and in other nations, let's be clear. We're focusing on North America. They've made people like us, people like the average blue-collar Canadian person who, like that gentleman I told you about, he wants lower prices. He wants the government to not to take action that's going to jack up prices. And he's a bad guy because he won't just go and pay that. What did that woman say in the clip, Joe? $4 for 2 cloves of garlic? He's got the audacity to not want to pay $4 for 2 cloves of garlic when there's people dying in the Ukraine. This is a Western democracy. That's the way you talk to your citizens, is that if I'm not suffering like the people in the Ukraine, I have no right to complain about anything? That's the world we live in? Joe, tell me if I'm wrong, man.
Again, people have to connect that directly with their ideology, which they're shoving down your throat. That's happening all over the West. It's happening in Europe. It's happening in Canada. And soon it's going to be happening even more in the U.S. Wait till the second term of Biden. Yes, I do believe he's going to get reelected because they're not going to allow Donald Trump to be the president. They're not going to allow it. And they're going to do that in such a way that's going to shock people. They're going to be open mouth and can't even believe what they just did.
Well, didn't they do that? Didn't people look with an open mouth and couldn't believe what happened to John F. Kennedy?
It will be something I equated to something along the lines of like the O.J. Simpson case. And then after the fact, somebody looking you square in the face saying, that wasn't proven, and absolutely believe he was innocent.
Right.
It's going to be as ridiculous as that because they will not allow someone to become the president that they can't control. And that goes for Canada too, because we don't live in a democracy. And the more people who start to see that, the closer we will get to solidarity and the closer we will get to ending it.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, the press divides people. There is no forum for debate. There is no way out until people see who the enemy truly is, and the enemy is the government that pretends to be serving you. The only people they're serving is themselves.
That's right. That's absolutely true. And not for anything. And I want to play this clip for everybody just joining us here at the front line with Joe and Joe. Hey, if you like our conversations, whether you're watching us on Rumble, X, Facebook, YouTube, share the video, share it. Just help us out a little bit. That's all we ask. We don't ask you for any money. We just ask for a little click, and please subscribe. We could really, we're really growing nicely. Got a nice audience going right now. And I'm sure that's going to grow. So here's the thing. This is why I say I'll vote for Pierre Poilievre and watch this disgusting action on the part of the Mr. Speaker. I guess this, I don't know how it works. I guess it's the Speaker of the House in Canada. Watch his reaction to Pierre Poilievre, where I thought Pierre Poilievre was spot on.
British Columbians have died of drug overdoses, but he continues to allow those drugs to kill the people in our hospitals and on our public transit. When will we put an end to this wacko policy by this wacko Prime Minister?
No.
That is not there are a couple of things which are going on here today, which is not acceptable. And I ask all members, please, to keep themselves, to control themselves. I'm going to ask two things. One, I'm going to ask the Honourable Leader of the Opposition to withdraw that term, which is not considered parliamentary.
Mr. Speaker, I replace Wacko with extremist. He is an
The Honourable Member to please. I'm going to ask the Leader of the Opposition once again to just withdraw that comment, please. And I'll invite the Honourable Member.
So now we can't play the whole thing. It's too long. But here's the thing. Poilievre stood up. He called Trudeau what he is. Trudeau's a wacko, and his policies are wacko. Now, I think that the word extremist, because the left uses that word over and over and over, particularly on the issue of abortion. So Poilievre got up and said, okay, the extremist policies of the Prime Minister, and he is himself an extremist. And that still wasn't acceptable to the Speaker of the House of Commons in Canada, and ultimately Pierre Poilievre was asked to leave the chamber that day. He says, you're going to withdraw the whole statement or else you're going to have to leave. That's BS. I'm calling BS on that, Joe.
Oh, I would agree. And to be honest with you, he shouldn't have called him a wacko, but when he replaced it, that should be on the record because he is an extremist. It just goes to show you that it's rigged. It's absolutely rigged, and they're all in on it. The only people who aren't in on it is you. He's destroying people. Think about the policy that Poilievre is addressing here. He's allowing narcotics to be consumed legally.
Right.
It's destroying people. The evidence is there. The policy doesn't work. And Trudeau does not back down. He doubles down because he has all of the donor class behind him. He has all the elites behind him. ESG is working behind the scenes, which goes around your laws, which means you have no voice. And all he does is distract, deflect, gaslight, more rhetoric. And ultimately, what that says to me is this. Your vote means nothing. I'm going to say it a lot because it's true. People have to get it through their head. You have to get it through your head. Why is it that policies are taking place that an overwhelming percentage of the population are against, yet they're still in place and they're going full steam ahead?
Because, well, Joe, you know, my opinion is because they know they're going to win elections.
That's right. And they don't have to appeal to you. They have to appeal to the donor class. And frankly, that's all that matters. They have to distract you.
And you know what I say to them?
And
next time I want to get mad at somebody, I want to find that woman. I want to just, you know, in the distance, I want to put up an Israeli flag and say, "Go ahead, sweetheart. Go ahead, start yelling. Shame!" Well, that is what I feel about Justin Trudeau. Shame on you. Look, we're Catholic men, okay, Joe. I believe in a heaven. I believe in a hell. I don't wish anybody to go to hell. But when you lie the way you do for power, prestige, for your comfortable life, like a person like Justin Trudeau, who's an actor, I've said that a million times. He's an actor. AOC's an actress. Gavin Newsom. These are not serious people. They don't have brains in their head. They kind of look good, and they're put up there. And when they're put up there like that, they're fed lines, and then they go. Shame on Justin Trudeau. When the people, all right, and shame on. And I don't want to say shame on the people that vote for him. People vote the way they do, and I don't want to attack people the way the left attacks us and calls us deplorable. But what I would like to say to people is this: can you give me the policies that Trudeau is proposing? If you're a blue-collar, middle-class person in Canada that's worth voting for, could you tell me what it is? And if you say it's abortion and that's your first issue, okay, I can't argue with you. I'm pro-life. I'm not pro-abortion, but I get it. But if your issues are taxes, finances, public debt, what's Justin Trudeau's his cohort there? What's her name? The other one, I forgot. The deputy prime minister. Do you
Oh,
know her name?
I can see her face. I can't even recall.
She wants to bump the national debt to $2.1 trillion. Think about that though. Canada's at 2.1 trillion or something like that. We're at 32 trillion. But nonetheless, she wants to raise the debt ceiling. Why do you want to drive your country into debt? Why? Because the people that you claim to govern are your enemy. You've made them your enemy. And that's why I played that clip again. And I'm going to play it again a couple times tonight. Shame on you that these people vote for you. And that's the way you treat them.
Well, the problem is the press is on the side of the government and they basically lull the people to sleep. And sadly, too, people belong to a tribe. We're unmoored. We no longer have strong families. We don't believe in God. So people are tribal. It's tribal. And it's easy when it's a tribal society to look away from someone within your crew that's doing something wrong. You may even know that it's wrong, but you'll choose not to look at it because that's your identity. And there's too many people like that. Like, I don't identify with any political party. I identify as a Catholic. That's how I identify. I'm not telling you to identify that way. I'm telling you how I identify. I don't identify as a Republican. I don't identify as a conservative. I don't identify as a liberal. I don't identify as a libertarian. I identify as a Catholic. And frankly, that's where my vision, I see everything through that lens. But sadly, that's not how people do things. And when you do that, you're willing to just look away. You're willing to disregard that issue. And frankly, that doesn't do the country any good. And that's what's going on. And people like Justin Trudeau rely upon that because they have to divide the nation in order to stay in power. That's exactly what is going on. What happened in America, they divided the nation by race. They're doing it through economics. They're doing it through rhetoric. Ultimately, they're loyal to an ideology and they're not loyal to you. And if you don't believe me, keep looking at your bank book. Keep looking at your food bill. And they're going to keep lying to you, telling you that the rebate's going to help you. They're going to keep lying to you, and they're going to say it's the corporation.
A rebate for what? When you're paying $4 for 2 cloves of garlic or $10 for a gallon of gasoline or $17 for 2 cases of sparkling water, is that a joke? Are you kidding me? Take your friggin' check and shove it exactly where you know it's supposed to go. Thank you for that. Freeland is in the chat room. Christia, what's her name? Christia
Freeland. She's Robin to Batman, to Trudeau.
Yeah, she's Robin the Batman. That was Freestyle. I'm sorry. Thank you, Freestyle, for putting that up there. So here's the thing. You mentioned Joe here at the Frontline with Joe and Joe. If you like what we do here at the Frontline with Joe and Joe, please don't hesitate. Subscribe to our channel, whether you're seeing us on Rumble, X, Facebook, YouTube. Please share this video, okay? We like to think we have entertaining conversations. We're a couple crazy Italian guys from New Jersey. We talk about Canada. We talk about America. Last week, we went across the world. We went to Australia. We'll talk about anybody. We'll talk about any place. We'll talk about anything, anytime you want. Now, here's the thing. Joe Rossinello, you mentioned tribe. When I hear tribe, I think people all like together. Somebody in the chat room, and you might have mentioned it also, about Uniparty. Somebody, please tell me what this is all about. Please watch the whole clip.
That one of Canada's greatest strengths is its diversity. We are strong not in spite of our differences, but because of our differences.
We will rely on the great Sikh values that Guru Gobind Singh brought forward, values of equality for the common people. We need a direct flight to Amritsar, and we need a national blue seal so that professionals that come here from Punjab or anywhere else can take a test, prove they're qualified, and work as nurses, doctors, and other highly paid professionals. Sonihal. Waheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji ki Fateh. Thank you.
दुनिया दे विच जिन्हां ने सिख जेनोसाइड रिकॉग्नाइज कीता ये जरूरी उपराला आ किसी दी कौम दी तरक्की वास्ते अगे ਵਧਣ वास्ते जो बेइंसाफी हुई है उन्होंने recognize करना चाहिए.
Okay, I don't know what is that Jagmeet, by the way? The last one, is that
That's
Jagmeet?
Jagmeet, our
That's
friend Jagmeet.
Jagmeet. Listen, I've heard a lot of names in my life. Never heard Jagmeet. We could have a lot of fun with that name. We're not going to because this is a family show. But here's my thing. Pierre Poilievre was quite embarrassing in that video. Number one, I'm going to throw it over to you, Sec Joe. The pandering is just blatant. If I'm Roman Catholic and you're not, don't come to me and tell me you love Jesus, Mary, and Joseph because you want my vote. If you don't love Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, that's okay. I may still vote for you, but I'm not going to force you to. But please don't pander to me. And I'm sure a lot of those Sikhs were thinking that too. I'm tired of hearing this stupid, insipid line that I've heard our whole lives, that diversity is our strength. No, it's not, actually. No, it's not. Okay, it's not our strength. And first of all, number one. Number two, Mr. Trudeau, you don't believe in diversity, true diversity, because you don't believe in diversity of ideas. You don't believe in diversity of thought. You believe in diversity of skin color, or whether or not I'm a man who identifies as a woman or vice versa, or whether or not I'm a man who loves other men, or a woman who loves other women. Okay, that's how you measure diversity. I measure diversity by diversity of thought, which requires you to have a thought in your head, Mr. Trudeau. So that line that our strength is our diversity is a lie. And the ones who say it, Joe, are the least diverse people there are. Just because there's a black woman, a woman with white skin, an Hispanic woman, a gay woman, a trans whatever, as my mother would say, tuta gabarigots, okay, all up there, that doesn't mean that you're a fan of diversity. That just means you're a fan of people who look a little bit different, okay, than one another. But everybody thinks the same way. Everybody thinks the same way in your little circle of friends, Mr. Trudeau. And Poilievre should never. He wants to go and give a speech, Joe. He wants to go ask for their vote. Absolutely. They're Canadian citizens. Absolutely. Put that thing on your head. Start speaking Sikh, okay? Bow and all these things. It's embarrassing. I expect that from Justin Trudeau. I don't expect that from Pierre Poilievre. Joe, I want your thoughts.
Well, it's something that Canadians should think about with regard to the Uniparty. Politicians, you don't need a politician. I'm telling you right now, you don't need a politician. Canada is in a lot of trouble, and a politician isn't going to dig your way out of it. I got news for you. And it shows you how they all operate. It shows you, frankly, that in many ways, they're all the same. That's what we have in America. They're all the same. And we need a person of the people. We need the voice of the people. Does that sound, I mean, granted, everyone's looking for votes. You're going to different communities. I get it. Did that sound sincere?
No.
We want the values, the Sikh values.
What are Sikh values?
But I mean, I have nothing against the Sikhs, but my point is, it's clear that he is pandering, and they're all pandering in the same way. And frankly, it doesn't come across as genuine as, say, frankly, just a policy. How about we stop, like, to your point, Joe, getting into the racial, like, this group, that group. How about we all come together as we're Canadians, we're Americans. They're Canadians.
You can't. Those days are gone. See, back in the day, you had two parties debating. Let's bring it to America for a second. You had two parties debating the role of government. What's the role of government? Of course, the Democrat Party a long time ago was infiltrated by the socialists and the communists, and they became more socialist and communist as they went along. They're not interested in speaking to people, Joe. They're not interested in finding common ground with people, Joe. They're interested in getting their agenda through, and no matter what they have to do, whether it's shaming, whether it's shaming you, whether it's calling you names, whether it's character assassination, that's all they do. Those days are over where Democrats and Republicans actually debated. America, I remember Newt Gingrich years ago when he was Speaker of the House, and I wasn't anywhere near, not that I'm the most astute politically person in the world, okay, but I'm much more less astute then than I am now. I remember Newt Gingrich then saying, "This the greatest deliberative body in the history of the world." No, you're not, Newt. I know you'd like for that to be. I know you do that, or you'd like to engage the other side with true debate. The American House of Representatives is a crap show. It's not a debate. They don't debate there. The Senate doesn't debate. When the Republicans have witnesses, the Democrats don't show up. And when they do show up, they call people names. That woman called Riley Gaines, that one black representative in the House of Representatives, she called Riley Gaines a transphobe. Okay, whatever that means. It's just a leftist construct. And Riley Gaines called her a misogynist. That's the United States House of Representatives. It doesn't, and guess what? And look at what happens, even though they hate each other. To bring it to America for a second, Mike Johnson just voted for an omnibus bill that stuck every conservative in America right in the back. You thought that this guy might actually be on our side. What did he prove? What Joe Resinello always says: you can't trust any of them. They're all part of the same club, and you ain't in it.
And people have to see that. And frankly, I'll be honest with you, they're using you. People who belong to those tribes and will like fight to the death for the libertarians or fight to the death for the Democrats or the social, whatever you want to call yourself, they're using you. They're using you. The governments have gotten too powerful. They got too powerful because there's too much money involved. And then it just went up a notch with ESG. ESG is used by corporations in partnership with governments to get around the laws that they vote for. We saw that with the truckers when they froze your assets. This is what's happening. We are no longer a government of the people. It's a government of the few. The minority rules the roost. And again, what I'm trying to do and what Joe's trying to do, if you ask me, is open people's eyes. More eyes have to open. When people start to realize what's happening, then frankly, I'm going to tell you right now, it's not until, in my opinion, that people come together and fight against the true enemy. And frankly, it's the government. That's why the Biden administration says very clearly the greatest threat to the government is who? The domestic terrorists. They actually identify you outright as the enemy. It's you who don't see them as the enemy. And
Right.
they are the enemy. And that's why they put a fence around Congress. They put a fence. These are the people that are supposed to represent you, and they're afraid of you. Know why they're afraid of you? Because they're attacking you. And people have to see that clearer.
Right.
Same thing in Canada. Look at your food bill. Look at the price of fuel. They're attacking you. Until you realize that, until you stop listening to the rhetoric, until you turn off the news and know that the news is the enemy of the Canadian people, it's just going to keep happening and keep going on. And frankly, it's sad to see. It really is sad to see because not enough people are clear-eyed, Joe. They really aren't. And that's the saddest part of it. Now, who's clear-eyed? Justin Trudeau. Now, who's clear-eyed? Jagmeet Singh. Now, who's clear-eyed? Joe Biden. They know what they're doing.
Well, maybe not Joe Biden, but his handlers are.
Fair enough. Mitch McConnell. They know what they're doing. Mike Johnson. Mike Johnson saw when he got into that position that he could do nothing. So he had to make a choice. Either go along or get rolled over. And he went along. And he will get rich. And he will get powerful. Now, who's not going to get powerful? Now, who's not going to get rich? You. You. And people have to see that. They have to see it. The government doesn't work for you anymore.
Well, here's the thing, Joe. But if you, let's say, for argument's sake, if you had a plan that would benefit, we're gonna pivot now. We're at the front line with Joe and Joe. We're gonna pivot to America, sprinkling in, of course, some Canada. And every time I think of Canada, I think of Justin Trudeau. That's what I think of Justin Trudeau. The people that, let's say for argument's sake, it'll never happen. I was running for president of the United States. Okay. I know that my positions would benefit working people. All right. It would benefit our economy. I wouldn't bow to the altar of the free market, even though I am a free marketeer. So are you. But I would emphasize that we need to set the conditions so that businesses have to compete for labor, thereby raising wages, encourage family lives, deep tax cuts, even maybe tax amnesty for people who have big families, okay, to incentivize big families, close the borders, all right, for at least 2 years. Don't give any visas out for work, okay? And let those wages start to come up, all right? And I bet you a lot of Democrats will say, I'm with you, Joe. I'm voting for you. Where you at on abortion? Oh, I'm pro-life. Sorry, I'm voting for Biden. Good. You're voting your own demise, okay? And you know the only people who at least think, for a second, Joe, they at least think they're benefiting because in their delusion, men think they're women, women think they're men, all these sorts of things. There's one, and well, no, not one. There's a uniparty in America that supports you because you have the freedom to do it, just like this guy.
I'm a trans and polyamorous therapist in Texas, and this is my therapy theme of the week. This week's theme honors Lesbian Visibility Week. As I myself am a trans lesbian, this is what I want to say about lesbians. One of the reasons why I love being a lesbian and I love lesbians is because we get to show the world that it is possible to love outside the dimensions of patriarchy. We, with Sapphic Love, create an entirely different dimension, an entirely different way of loving people and living, and it's so fucking beautiful. It's as important as the sunshine.
It's as important as my stomach turning at 90 miles an hour when I look at Luce. Now, let's be clear. Before we get started, I think he's a fake, okay? I think he's a guy who knows exactly what he's doing. Well, we know he's a guy, all right, knows exactly what he's doing, and he's trying to score lesbians by acting like a lesbian. And the lesbians can't reject him because he's going to say, but I'm transgender. You're supposed to want to date me, because he just wants to do some sexually depraved things with a couple of lesbians. That's what Luce is all about. Let's assume that for a second. If not, then Luce is a weirdo. And I'm sorry, but Luce is a weirdo. Talking about Sapphic Love, and obviously needs prayers.
What is that?
I'm not joking.
What is Sapphic Love? What the heck?
Lesbianism.
That's what that is?
That's all that is. Now, here's my thing. Let's say, for argument's sake, Luce is not a guy who's just looking to score a couple lesbians and have a fun time that night. Luce actually thinks he's a woman, and not only a woman, but a lesbian, okay? You need help because you think that, let's say, there's a group of people that are on your side in this country and other countries, okay? When in the meantime, when they get real power, Luce, you know what's going to happen to you? Maybe even before the front line with Joe and Joe. This is going to happen to you. You're going to be crushed under their thumb is what's going to happen. You're a useful idiot to the people who are controlling you, Luce. You think with some other part of your body outside of your brain. Your passions control your reason rather than the other way around. And it ain't patriarchy to say that a family is led by a man, because that's the way it works anthropologically, not just religiously. Okay, men are best equipped to provide for the family, to protect the family, to defend the family, to lead the family. And a good woman, which many, many, many of them are out there, Joe Arsenello, many, okay, support that and want that in a man. So what you call patriarchy, we call one of the only things that's going to save Western civilization. Joe, I'm throwing it over to you.
Well, he's clearly a disturbed individual. And we've basically said that that's okay. We've mainstreamed people like that in both societies, both in Canada and in America. And again, because we've lost our North Star. Joe, it all comes down to first principles. But I want to circle back to something you were talking about basically some very common sense platforms. If you say we're to run for something, the establishment won't allow that. You see, that's the problem. You see, you have to go along. That's why they're against RFK, and that's why they're against, Donald Trump. You have to go along. People simply have to see that. You know, they want you to approve Luce. You're not okay if you basically think that individual has a mental illness, because he does.
Right.
He's mentally ill. Sorry. I have nothing but pity for him. His end in this life will be a bad one. Right. Guaranteed. He's not going to die with dignity in a bed with those who love him around his bed. That's not how people like that end. He's mentally ill. He'll probably.
Remember I told you years ago, I know you did a lot of work with the missionaries charity. And my wife and I remember we came down the one time with you and your wife down to the West Village. I'll never forget it. And I've mentioned this. It's been a while since I mentioned this, but it's a thought that just popped into my head here at the front line with Joe and Joe. And we were helping and we were volunteering, and the men that were in that shelter where you were volunteering particularly were dying. Many of them were dying of AIDS. Okay. And the sisters were there to minister to them, the lay people like yourself and your wife, to help feed them and to volunteer in that way and to show them love, to show them Christ's love. And the thought, I remember telling you this, and this pertains to Mr. Luce, Mr., Mrs., whatever he wants to call himself, okay? Those guys that were dying of AIDS in that shelter run by the Missionaries of Charity, their friends, while they're on their deathbed, their friends are out in the bar partying. They're not around them. They're not telling them how much they love them. They're not doing any of that. They're letting them die by themselves. Luce will die by himself, okay? A very lonely, broken, unfortunately, very dark person. We can only pray, okay, that somehow, some way, Luce finds the light, okay, finds the light of Christ, all right, in his life and stops doing this. But that's what I was thinking about when you were talking about that, is that he's going to die alone the same way those men, all right, at the shelter who have AIDS, the same way they're going to die. Okay, alone. But the only difference is they're not dying alone because they're dying with the Missionaries of Charity around them and people actually praying for them and loving them, not their so-called friends who are probably out in the bar on Christopher Street, doing God knows what. That's my little rant. But, Luce and people like him need to get their head out of their butt, okay? All right, you're not fooling anybody, Luce. You're not fooling anybody, and sooner or later, okay, you're going to have to go back into the closet where you belong, because the bottom line is this. Here's another thing very harshly, Joe. I'm sorry to say. You're not coming near us. You're not going to be my neighbor, and I'm not going to be friendly with you if you're my neighbor. I won't live next to you, okay? I don't want you in my school where my son is. I don't want you in the library, okay? I don't want any of that, okay? I'll pray for you, but you stay over there. Joe, I'm sorry that's harsh. I'm going to throw it over to you.
Ultimately, he's a wounded person, and he's wounded most probably because of a broken family. He's wounded because he potentially was sexually abused. Many of those people have been sexually abused, and it comes down to the broken, smallest cell of society, which is the family.
Right.
We have to get back to basics. Again, we're arguing about things in our political landscape that are not going to get resolved in the forums that they are being argued in. They're not made to. They're made to distract you.
Right.
You're not going to get a resolution on transgenderism as it stands right now. Know why? Because the corporate elites want it. Why is it that the state of Tennessee, a conservative state, just refused to take down the LGBTQ flag in public school? A conservative state, because the corporate handlers, the donor class, will not permit it to happen.
Well, you may should live in Tennessee, because we should walk into that classroom, take the flag, throw it in a garbage can, put some butane on it, and burn it.
But then we go to jail, and that will be on the news. And this is my point. People have to start to see things as they are.
Stay there, Joe. Stay right there. I'm going to throw it right back to you. You used the right word, and I want to stay there for a minute, because we harp on this here at the front line with Joe and Joe all the time. If you're watching this video all over social media, X, Rumble, Facebook, YouTube, please share this video. Help us out with a like. That wouldn't hurt either. Joe, stay on the word distraction for a second. If I can emphasize to anybody, I want everybody to be in the Catholic Church. Everybody, okay? Because I believe that outside the Catholic Church, you know exactly what the church teaches, okay? That everybody should be in the Catholic Church. Having said that, but if I can convince people, one of the reasons why you should be in the Catholic Church, because the Catholic Church teaches logos, meaning that your mind, your reason, your intellect is what controls your passions. Luce and people like Luce, and this is why E. Michael Jones calls them the proxy warrior of the oligarchs, is the homosexuals. There's the new man. Luce is the new man. They have no control. Joe, stay on distraction for a second. These are distracted people. What are we distracted with? Seriously, what do we get distracted with? Got to pay the bills, right? Got to raise our kids, all right? Got to love our wives. Those are good distractions. But yet, and that could be distracting. These people have no sense of reality. In other words, their loins control their reason, and then they want everybody to live life the way they want to live life. And I say, no effing way, because my head's on straight. I'm crazy. I'm loudmouthed. Maybe I'm a little bit of a loose cannon, but my head's on straight and my eyes are wide freaking open. Joe, I think you know where I'm going. Talk about distraction, because that's all these people are, is distracted by their own passions.
Ultimately, though, when people aren't centered on, you use the term logos, I'll use the term God. We could interchange that with the truth. You have to distract yourself, because frankly, if you look in the mirror, if you sit in silence, that will haunt you, because people within their hearts know what's right and wrong. People do. They're distracted constantly with noise and noise and noise. This individual will end badly. And
Yeah.
frankly, the output of this behavior is speaking for itself. It's speaking for itself. Our society is unraveling. We saw recently in the chamber in Canada, they're talking about the drug use that's happening in British Columbia, BC. Look at the streets. Look at the clips of a beautiful, beautiful part of Canada, absolutely and utterly destroyed. Look
Right.
at the streets of major cities in America. They're disgusting. New York has gone backwards. San Francisco, a beautiful city, destroyed. LA, destroyed. It looks like the third world. And somehow these policies are being supported. Know why? Because you belong to a tribe. You're willing to overlook it because that's your tribe. You're unmoored, as Luce is unmoored.
Right.
He is unmoored from reality. And frankly, a lot of functioning people who belong to a tribe who will look you square in the face and tell you that they're voting for Justin Trudeau or voting for Joe Biden or voting for the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, after you look with your own eyes, I would say something is not right.
Well, here's you talk about tribes. The biggest tribe there is right now is the Church of the Climate Cult. That is the biggest tribe there is.
Goddamn fucking stupid Republican talking point that is destroying our world about climate change. But before I do, I want to address my own caustic attitude and tone. I don't like it. I don't like talking like this. I don't like being like this. In person, I prefer to see the best in people and relate to people through common humanity, even when we disagree. But these devices and these platforms are being used by radical Republicans to destroy and undermine our democracy and environment. So I am going to spit truth right back at them. In this case, yes, it is true that the climate does naturally change. 12,000 years ago, the end of the last ice age allowed humans to proliferate through the world. But it's also true that humans affect climate, you fucking morons! It is possible to have a morning and an afternoon. Yes, nature causes wildfires, and it's also true that if you pour gasoline on fires, you make it worse. In the case of the climate, we have 8 billion people on the planet. We have never seen anything like this in the history of humanity. In the last 100 years, we have quadrupled our population. Prior to that, we had never doubled in 100 years. From 0 to 1,500, we didn't even double. And that was under 500 million people.
Joe, I have to take him off because I'm about to get angry, and I don't want to get angry. There's a couple things here, okay? He talks about common humanity. Are you going to be the one to fall on your sword, sir? In other words, because you say there's 8 billion people in the world. Do you want those people to die? Because it seems the way you want. I'm sure he's all for abortion. He's all for loose and people who are never going to have children.
Let me jump in because what he's for is that's repackaged eugenics, Joe.
That's right.
That's another thing where people have to connect the dots. What he's and here's another thing. Guess who he wants to get rid of?
Black people.
Brown people, people in Africa, people in Asia. Frankly, even undesirable people in America and in Canada. Canada, through the MAID program, they're killing the poor. They're killing the depressed. It's opening up to children. Why is it that the majority of Planned Parenthood centers are in African American and Latino neighborhoods?
And they call you a racist when you want to save those black and brown babies. You're the racist. Go, Joe.
That is nothing more than repackaged eugenics. And frankly, behind it all is they are supporting, and this goes all the way back to the elites that bang on the climate change drum. The people who get to live, the people who get to have, the people who live comfortable are them. The people who don't are you.
You see this guy here? I met a million guys like him. I've met a million guys like him, Joe. Number one, they listen, I have a temper. I know I have a temper. Okay. But the bottom line is this. I'm not unhinged like that guy. Okay. That guy is absolutely unhinged. Couple things. The population part of that is really why I wanted to cut it off there, because what he is actually saying is what they all say on the left. There's too many people in the world. I hope everybody stays tuned here at the front line with Joe and Joe. In a couple of weeks, we're going to have an interview we're going to be posting with Stephen Mosher, all right, who blows up that entire narrative that the world has too many people. This is the planet Earth, by the way, everyone. And these people, Joe Resinello, like that unhinged person, he's not going to convince me that the world does not have enough resources to feed 15 billion people. The problem is not the Earth. The problem is the economic and political systems that oligarchs like Justin Trudeau and Barack Obama and people that this guy would support put in place to keep people down. You're going to tell me that we can't feed the world? You're going to tell me with all the grain in the world, with all the crops in the world, with all the oil in the world, that people have to live in abject poverty? This guy's talking like most of those people actually are somehow a drain on our natural resources. They're dying. They're dying in Africa. They're dying in Asia. What do you mean? They're not even getting the resources, the food, the gas, the oil. They're not getting any of it. It has nothing to do with the earth. It has to do with political systems that claim to want to help people, and they don't, because, like you mentioned, it's all eugenics. It's birth control through turning everybody gay or transgender, or birth control through contraception. When that fails, it's birth control through abortion. It's let's not have too many people. We know their agenda. Listen, dude, you could scream and yell and rant and rave all you want and use all the GDs in the world and all the F-bombs you want. Doesn't make you right, dude. I don't believe in the climate hoax. I believe that human beings do contribute somewhat to temperatures fluctuating, but no, we're not going to get incinerated in about 30 years. And every prediction that people like you and Al Gore and others out there have said was going to come to fruition has not, and the earth keeps going on.
Absolutely. And I would say this, why isn't there a debate? There are scientists that disagree with certain scientists that say that there is a climate change issue. Why don't we have a debate? That's point one. Point two, I want to see the research. I'm not interested in your opinion. Just because you're a scientist and you have an opinion doesn't mean nothing to me. What I want to see is the research. And frankly, what he's talking again is getting rid of certain groups of people. It's eugenics, believe it. Because it's not the people, frankly, that are pounding the drum. All the people who say it's about population. It's about population. It's not their population, Joe.
Right. No, it's not the WASP elites, okay, and the other elites out there. It's not the oligarchs, okay? It's not them that's going to, their families are going to thrive. Joe, listen, the last thing that happens, do you think that in the families of these elite people who have rather large families, do you think if the daughter comes home and says, Daddy, a 17-year-old daughter, Daddy, I got pregnant, I'm thinking about having an abortion, the father's going to say, what, are you kidding me? You're not having an abortion. This is a family that we have to procreate. That's all right. Don't worry about it. You'll have the baby. We have plenty of money. You'll be just fine. They don't have abortions. They don't kill their kids. They want you to kill your kids. Okay? That's number one. And the thing is too, it's like when you listen to some of this, and they always trot out, somebody's lying, Joe, when they keep trotting out the same debunked line all the time. 99% of the world's scientists agree. That is a lie. That is a lie. 99% of the world's scientists who are asked about climate change agree. And guess who you go after? The ones whose funding relies on them going with the flow. You want to talk about a tribe? I'm doing cancer research. I'm a scientist. I'm somewhere in Europe, okay? And that's all I'm concerned about is trying to find a cure for cancer. And they come and I need funding. I need funding. Keep the money coming because I'm going to find a cure for cancer. And they come in, they send me a survey. Are you for climate change? And the guy knows that his funding will get cut off. If he doesn't say the right thing, is yeah. That's right, man-made climate change. Yeah. Now I need my funding for my cancer research. That's all they do. That's number one. Number two, when you talk about reasonable debate, there's no reasonably debating that guy, all right? But people who propose all this stuff, Joe, they're the ones who sick YouTube and Facebook. They get Zuckerberg and what's his name from Google to get in there with anybody who contradicts that narrative. It's the same as if you talk about COVID. If you have an intelligent argument, if you want to debate these people, they say no, the debate is over. Joe, I'm going to hand it to you. When someone says to me, the debate is over, we don't debate that anymore, it's settled, I say, absolutely not. Everything's open for debate. And if you say that it's not, then I don't trust you.
Ultimately, the climate is being used as a tool of the powerful, and they're using it to take your power. And you cannot afford to go along with that agenda. I'm telling you this right now. If you're supporting people that support that ideology and you're not rich, the only person you're fooling is yourself. I'm telling you that right now.
Yes.
The only person you're fooling is yourself. And the reason why you won't say that or look that square in the face is because you belong to a tribe. That's why your grocery bill is high. That's why you can't afford to put gas in your car. And I got news for you. It's only going to get worse. I recently saw a story where it's going to cost $31,000 extra to build a house in America because of all of the legislation that's put forth by the Biden administration to basically build a house to make sure it's environmentally sound. $31,000 extra. Can you afford $31,000? Guess who can? Joe Biden. Guess who can? John Kerry. Guess who can't? You. And if you're supporting these ideologies and you're not rich, the only person who's suffering is you and your family. They're using it as a tool. They can afford it, and you can't, and you refuse to connect that dot.
Well, listen, you want to live in a tribe, then you keep voting for these people, then you're going to die in a tribe, okay? Because you're not going to last. Again, Stalin called them, Joe, useful idiots. Anybody who goes like that ranter, that gentleman, okay, it's hard to call him a gentleman, but I'm trying to be nicer nowadays at the front line with Joe and Joe. They're not interested. They're not. You're going to go along to get along, and when the time comes, I like to tell that guy, as I said earlier, when the time comes, he gets crushed. Joe, we have a few minutes left. Now, I think Donald Trump got stabbed in the back by a lot of people. I really do. I think at the very least, objective people should have looked at the evidence after the election of 2020. Objective people. And I think he got stabbed in the back by a lot of people that he supported and he helped, okay? And I actually really like the gentleman I'm about to play. I do. I have a lot of respect for him. But I thought he was wrong for not taking Trump's back. I thought he was wrong for that. And I'm going to tell you why after the clip, why I think Trump's wrong and sometimes Trump deserves what he gets.
Posted about you this week because he responded in response to you saying you'd vote for the Republican ticket. Wow, former AG Bill Barr, who let a lot of great people down by not investigating voter fraud in our country, has just endorsed me for president despite the fact that I called him weak, slow-moving, lethargic, gutless, and lazy. Based on the fact that I greatly appreciate his wholehearted endorsement, I am removing the word lethargic from my statement. Thank you, Bill.
Yeah. It's classic Trump. What's the question?
What's your response?
Well, I mean, obviously, what I said was that I'm very disappointed that this country is stuck with this choice between two people who I don't think either of them should be president of the United States. But given that binary choice, I feel I have to choose Trump.
Now that's being honest. And I'm going to tell you where he's going with that. Trump just can't help himself and humbly accept let's say, Bill Barr's endorsement. He's got to remind people he called them lazy and lethargic. See, this is where I despise Trump. I'm tired of him doing that, Joe. Stop picking on the people that brought you to the dance. Barr tried to help you, no matter what you say. He stood up against the wackos in the Senate and the House defending you. Okay, so fine. I disagreed with Bill Barr. He should have stuck by you when it came to, at very least, looking at the allegations about the election. But he's now endorsing you. Why do you have to go back to the lazy, lethargic, gutless thing? Why do you have to do that? Because guess what, Joe? My attitude sometimes is Trump or no Trump. Maybe things will be a little bit better under Trump. I'm going to stay the F home, and I'm not going to vote for either one of them. And I ain't, by the way, voting for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Because to me, he's a sellout too. And we could talk about him if you want. But I'm going to throw this over to you. I appreciate what Bill Barr said. He's basically saying the Democrats are wacko without saying it. Okay. But I can't stand when Trump's always got to slap the hand that feeds him.
Ultimately, Trump is flawed. But if you turn off the news, stop listening to the pundits, you will have a better life under Donald Trump financially. Undeniable. Another thing which won't happen is your kids will not get groomed. Another thing that will happen is you will have more judges that are more inclined to adhere to and defend the Constitution, as opposed to judges who cannot tell you who a woman is. Is Donald Trump the answer? Absolutely not. Is Donald Trump flawed? 100%. Is Bill Barr right that, frankly, Donald Trump is a little unsavory? Maybe he's a lot unsavory. Should he be the president in a healthy society? Probably not, but we're not a healthy society. And the thing that clip that I found interesting, which got cut off, because that's just a piece of it, it's a 2-minute clip. If you listen to the whole thing, she continues to prod him. You're going to vote for somebody, you're going to endorse somebody who calls you that. And what his response is, it's an adult response. It's not about me.
Right.
It's about the country. You see, Bill Barr doesn't belong to a tribe, and too many people do, and they can't look past their own tribe. Bill Barr has a beef with Donald Trump. Bill Barr is getting directly insulted by Donald Trump, yet Bill Barr is an adult, and Bill Barr could weigh the issues. And is Donald Trump perfect? No. Is he going to save the country? Jesus Christ is going to save the country, not Donald Trump. And until people turn to God once again, Donald Trump just buys the country a little bit more time, particularly with judges.
Right.
That's it. That's it.
Right.
We have to get our heads right. But I'm going to tell you this, and I'm not speaking as a Republican. I'm just speaking honestly. There is not even a comparison. Pure issues between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. It's not even a comparison. Joe Biden, in a healthy society, in a society that could look themselves directly in the face outside of a tribe, his own wife wouldn't vote for him. Joe Biden is cognitively impaired. And if you don't think so, frankly, you simply are tribal.
And if you do think so, he's going to take you out behind the gym and he's going to give you, that's what he's going to do, Joe Russell.
It is sick. And this is, I'm just saying, it's just the truth. And again, Bill Barr, to his credit, he's nothing more than an adult. And we need more adults. We need more adults that could say this. It's not about me. It's not about me.
I want to point out one bit of hypocrisy on the part of that reporter. Now, I don't know her. I don't know her positions. My guess is that she wholeheartedly voted for, or would have voted for, Bill Clinton if she was even of age at that time. I don't know how old she is. And I guarantee you she's pro-abortion and every other atrocity, okay? She'll say to Bill Barr in that dripping condescending way that the press does that. So you're really going to vote for Donald Trump after what he said about you? You're going to vote for Bill Clinton after he raped Juanita Broderick? Because you are. You know you would. The way he's treated women with Epstein Island and everything else and all the things that Bill Clinton has done, you're going to vote for him, aren't you? What's more deplorable? Me voting for Donald Trump because Trump called me a few names because I didn't back him up with the election? Or you voting for Bill Clinton, who's an accused rapist, okay? An accused rapist, according to Juanita Broderick, okay? And we know exactly what he did to so many women. Give me a break with their hypocrisy. Joe, you got 30 seconds for a final.
Ultimately, again, people have to see things from the perspective of the country as a whole. Stop listening to the news. Turn off the pundits. Look at your checkbook. Look at what your kids, the books that your kids are bringing home in public school. Look at the fact that we're being censored and they're calling it disinformation. Listen, everyone has a right to free speech. If you don't have free speech, you don't have a democracy. And I got news for you. If you're voting for the climate, you are voting yourself into the poorhouse. It's going to continue to shrink the middle class. It has shrunk the middle class in Canada, and it will continue to absolutely demolish the regular man in America to the point where we have no middle class. And then maybe we could see things clearly, and then maybe we could come together and get our power back.
Well, that's the reason why the front line with Joe and Joe is here, because one of the reasons why we started doing this was to, in our own way, raise the consciousness of the American people, help to open people's eyes. Why? Because we're so smart? No, we say that all the time. We're not so smart, but our eyes are wide open, and we're a couple of loudmouths from New Jersey, all right? So if you like what we do, wherever you're seeing us, on Rumble, on X, on Facebook and YouTube, please help us out. Like and subscribe and share with your friends. This way we can get to a wider audience. And really, get these conversations out there. Obviously, everybody here, we got Bry416, very, very nice compliment from him. Says, these two Joes are two gems. That's a great compliment, Bry. We really appreciate it. So Thursday nights, 9:00 Eastern time, that's when we go live. We really appreciate you joining us. And remember, until the next time, that our conversation is your conversation, and that conversation is going on everywhere.